Hey there, everybody. I'm RJ Beam, and tonight I am reviewing Inside the Star Wars Empire by Bill Kimberlin. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Premeditated Fiction. I'm your host, RJ Beam, and tonight I'm going to be reviewing a book a little bit different than my norm. Typically, I do a lot of your mysteries, police procedurals, thrillers, but this week I've read a memoir, autobiography of Bill Kimberlin, who is an employee at Industrial Light and Magic. And so his book, which is coming out in February, a little bit early here and getting it posted, but it's called Inside the Star Wars Empire. This book really attracted me because obviously, I'm from that generation where Star Wars came out, got to see all the original movies in the theaters, mostly the first time around. At my age, I was not able to see A New Hope the first time I was in the theater, but just before Empire Strikes Back came out, they did a re-release of A New Hope in a couple of the local theaters, so I was able to see that, and then a couple weeks later, literally like a month later, I went and saw Empire Strikes Back, so that was pretty cool as a little kid. So, having grown up around Star Wars, had all the toys, saw the movies, a bit of a fan. In high school and into college, my part-time job that I had was working at a movie theater. I worked up in the projection booth. So, anytime I get a chance to read about movie making and the histories and the backstories, it's something that's nostalgic for me. Decided not to pursue that as a career. Never really had any interest in it. As a matter of fact, law enforcement's always been my calling, but that was definitely a very memorable part of my life. As a matter of fact, when the re-releases came out in the mid-90s, when the special edition releases came out just before the prequels, I was working at the movie theater, and so we got them a couple days before they were scheduled to be shown. So we had time. The way movies come in is multiple reels of film that have to be stitched together and then make one gigantic reel of film that sits on a platter and spins to be projected. They don't do that anymore today. Everything's digital, but back when we still had film, that's the way it was done. And so it would take us a little bit of time to build these films, put the trailers on the front, all that fun stuff. So we got the Star Wars movies together, and then of course the employees of the theater at midnight, 2 in the morning, after all the guests were gone, we sat and we watched the Star Wars movie. So, really good memory here, sitting down to read this book. But I digress. You're here to learn about the book, not about me. All right. So the story is mostly revolves around Bill's time working for ILM, and he was there through a fair amount of really important things. The end of Star Wars, as ILM started doing, special effects for other people, which included, things like the Back to the Future movies, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jurassic Park. So he talks about inventing some of the special effects and inventing some of the camera techniques that they had to invent to do these things. The whole chapter about Who Framed Roger Rabbit was really cool. Learning about how they did some of the filming, the practical, and then the animation effects in days before CGI. At the same time, though, there were some parts of the book I kind of got lost on. I understand it's a biography, so he wants to tell parts about his childhood and how that made him who he was later in life. That's important. But what he did, which it works, but what he did was he interspliced that with the movie project they're working on, which makes sense. But I got kind of lost. He starts talking about the Back to the Future movies, and he's talking about one particular scene that he was involved in and how it had a tie with where his family had lived for a while and, where his stepdad had moved to, which is, the same location, the same canyon or rock quarry where they filmed one of the pivotal scenes in the movie. And so he spends, a bunch of pages talking about his family history and his stepdad moving away and yada, yada, yada. And then he comes back to talking about Back to the Future. And it's kind of like for a few pages, I'm like, what's going on here? We were talking about Back to the Future, and now we're not. And then suddenly, okay, so he had to tell this information so that it made sense as to why they were doing Back to the Future there. So, it made sense after the first couple of times. You realize that that's how his structure was. You didn't get lost again, but The first few times, it was a little weird. With a name like Inside the Star Wars Empire and a cover photo too, showing the Millennium Falcon and the second Death Star, I thought this book was going to have a lot more to do with Star Wars. And sadly, it did not. He spent a good amount of time talking about it, but then he also got into a lot of other things, which were interesting, don't get me wrong. But I was expecting more Star Wars. Not saying it's a bad book. I would like to, I would love to like this book more. It was good. If I had a 5-star system, real solid 4 stars, but definitely not, a 5-star rating on Amazon when that comes around. So if you are a film buff, if you are a Star Wars geek, check it out. It's well worth it. I caution you, don't go into it thinking it's going to be cover to cover Star Wars though, but there's a lot of other stuff related to the film industry and other really good genre movies, which you probably have some interest in also. So definitely worth a check out. And it comes out on February 1st, 2018. So this review is a little bit early. I did receive an advanced reader copy from the publisher via Book Galley for this unbiased review. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll talk to you again later.